And we're back.
Glad we're back. How's this recording? Can you see my face, or is it frozen like fucking actress's Botox?
It's better than that joke.
That wasn't a good joke?
No.
What constitutes a good joke to you then? Because that was like tip-top. It was tip-top.
Timing.
That's all? Just timing? The content doesn't matter?
Just timing.
You suck. How about that timing?
I mean, you're clearly the one that sucks, so I feel for you. I always have felt for you for sucking so much throughout your entire life. You exude suckiness.
Did I suck when I beat you up in second grade? Did that suck?
I mean, it sucked when you were on the ground and you were screaming, "I'm going to tell everyone I beat you up."
That's not what happened.
I am pretty sure that's what happened.
You were crying and took me to the principal's office. And then you were like, "Please come over my house and play with me. We should be friends. I wish I was as cool as you, second grade Scott." Word for word. Word for word. Welcome back to Monday Night Conversations. I am one of your hosts, Scott Macklin, and looking at me with disgust on this virtual meeting screen is the other host, Matt Thompson.
Disgust is always the way I would look at you, sir.
Well, I did cut you off when you were about to. I think you were about to make a point, and you were just, I read it in your face, in your micro expression. You were like, I can't say what I wanted to say.
No,
you need to say what you want to say.
I just wanted to scream out, "And we're back!" again. That's all. That was all I was going for.
Like and subscribe to the podcast. Go to YouTube.
And we're back! Yeah, that's how you do it.
Go to our YouTube
That's how you
page.
cut people off.
I'm going to cut that out. Go to our YouTube page. Like and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Got a really good show for you today. A lot of content happening. I want to start off the show with a big NBA trade.
We haven't talked much NBA, Scott.
I know.
Because
we will.
What the people don't realize is that our in-depth knowledge really, really, really focuses highly on the NBA.
Yes.
and our conversations that we've had over the past 3 decades are really concentrated on the NBA, probably 75%.
Well, a lot of our conversations were initially, when we started doing these daily conversations, were mostly about how do you like the NBA? The NBA is so bad. And I was like, I don't know. I like it. I watch it every day. This was in the 2000s.
I love the NBA I love NBA playing. Like I like the way that the players play, and I like the games, but I don't like how the contracts have turned the guys into part-time players. That's all.
Well, specifically, I was talking about in the 2000s, the Eddie Curry era.
It was unwatchable basketball. It was
not for me.
It was a time period where college basketball was more popular than the pros, and I mean that obviously flipped completely now because college basketball is virtually unwatchable in my opinion. So yeah,
but we will be talking a lot of NBA as soon as the NBA gets started. It's the training camp just opened, media day just happened. There's a huge trade over the weekend that I've really wanted to talk to Matt about, but I've been saving the opinions for the podcast. Karl Anthony Towns was traded from the Minnesota Timberwolves to the New York Knicks for Dante DiVincenzo, not the headliner.
DVV.
Yeah.
We can call him DVV during this podcast for easy purposes. Easy button.
Julius Randle is probably the headliner in the trade going back to Minnesota, and a first-round pick from the Detroit Pistons, a conditional first-round pick.
Right.
So the headline player is Karl Anthony Towns. The splash player, so you will. He's the best player that got traded. I think that's fair to say. But I don't necessarily think that the Knicks won the trade, Matt.
I think both teams won the trade. I think it's one of the I always like my initial reaction to a trade. I look at it really quickly. I think how they fit on the team, and I think what happened. Who won, who lost. And I looked at this really simply. Julius Randle is a playmaking big. He's very, very good, very, very talented. He did not fit with the current Knicks roster that is super Villanova heavy, super wing heavy, and super Jalen Brunson heavy. So he just didn't fit there. Plus, his max contract was a problem. DVD, 40% three-point shooter, guy that averaged 18 points a game in the second half of the season. Really, really high-end player. Like, if he's a six-man, he's going to be a threat to win the six-man award every single season. Gives Minnesota a secondary playmaker at point guard, and they don't have to rely on the first-round pick from this year. That's a huge win for Minnesota. Yeah. Also for Minnesota, another reason why they win. You break up the Towns Gobert problem, because it is a problem.
But you get less spacing, though, because Randall's going to be occupying that elbow to post area with the ball.
I'm not sure the spacing matters as much because Gobert already screws that up.
Yeah, there's nothing. He's got to be at the dunker spot, or he can't do anything.
But Randall shoots a ton of threes. So, I mean, just because his percentage isn't quite as high, he rebounds better than Towns. He's a better rebounding NBA player than Karl Anthony Towns. That is my belief. And he's also an exceptional passer. Exceptional. So yes. You put those things together, you add DiVincenzo, it more than covers what Towns gave them. Also, what it does, and you had this in your notes, and you can touch on this, is Naz Reid.
Yeah, so let's start. Let's look at it. Since you brought it up, let's look at it from the Timberwolves' perspective, right?
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
This is a huge bet on Naz Reid. I mean, that's what this is, because Naz Reid showed in the playoffs that he can pretty much do everything that Karl Anthony Towns can do without going crazy and fouling 30 feet from the basket, which Towns is apt to do. He's on a really good contract for 2 more years, I believe. Mm-hmm. He's at the mid-level, which is like a steal if you look at his potential production. And Randall is not only a secondary ball handler, right, who's going to be starting. I don't think DiVincenzo's going to start. I mean, he's going to be coming off the bench.
Probably.
Conley's going to start. Conley, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, very similar name, and then I think it's going to be Randall and Gobert are going to be the starting 5.
I've heard multiple talking heads pronounce Jaden Daniels as Jaden McDaniels already.
Yeah. I mean it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So DiVincenzo was a 43%, not only a 43% three-point shooter last year, but also set the Knicks record for attempted and made threes, which is insane.
And he plays defense, and he's a badass, and he's a good team guy. It's a huge.
Not afraid of the moment. Like, will take big shots at any point.
I genuinely don't know how someone could think the Timberwolves won't be better this year with adding those two guys and losing.
Won championships in college and won a championship in the NBA. Had a significant role in that Warriors 22 team. Randall is an 3-time All-NBA player. Like, he's not nothing here.
Yeah, Randall was never going to be happy being the second banana in New York because he thought it was his team. He's going to Anthony Edwards' team now. It's all good.
Yeah. He knows that this is Anthony Edwards' team. There's no bones about it.
And
when Jalen Brunson came into New York, he thought he was going to be at the very least a 1A, 1B. More likely he was 1, and
sure.
Jalen was going to be 2. Now, that all being said, he knows to where he's going. And on top of it, for Minnesota, they have the ability to flip Julius Randle, who's on an expiring contract, if they want to get better elsewhere, and it certainly increases their depth. They don't have to rely on Rob Dillingham, who was the 13th pick overall.
Eighth.
Oh, 8th. I'm sorry. You're right. He was the 8th pick overall out of Kentucky. Very, very small. He ended up playing pretty well in summer league.
I like Dillingham, but maybe not for this year.
Right, exactly. They put a lot into him. They also drafted another guy out of Miami, I think. I can't remember who he was, but later in the first round, who actually was really, really good at Summer League. Very explosive, another guard. But again, you don't want to rely on these back of the first round rookies.
They're looking to win the West.
Team they want to compete, right? So why do they trade Karl Anthony Towns? Money. Whenever you're looking for the answer is always money.
And the fact that he's never been what he was supposed to be. Let's be real. He's not. He's not that. He's not a franchise center. Never was, never will be. He's a very effective player, and we'll talk about it when we get to the Knicks, but he just was not worth that max slot that he's owed because of his All-NBA selections. He's not worth that slot. He's just not. So they're like, okay, we can get rid of him, get a guy who's on a really favorable contract and DVV, It's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer for that team. And now you still have a nice you still don't have to rely on Gobert. You still have Randall and Nas, and if Gobert gives you a great defensive season, great. If not, whatever. That team. I mean, that team's going to go where Edwards takes them anyway. As long as the auxiliary pieces are functional, that's really what they need. That's it.
Well, there's also the ownership question. There's an ownership dispute between the current owner and like the A-Rod group, and that's going to arbitration. I think it's going to be solved, or going to arbitration, I should say, in 2024. So we're going to have a hopefully an answer soon, but who knows?
This might be drawn out for a while. There's been a lot of public craziness from Glenn Taylor, the owner, who's publicly shamed A-Rod and his team, which is, when you're in a major business transaction like that, it's just unheard of. So it's all
about the he said she said bullshit.
Yeah, you did well saying it too.
Limp Bizkit. How did they do that day in and day out?
How did they? Why? They did it all for the
they're
nookie.
All about the nookie.
They did it all for that nookie.
We got there at the same time.
So they can take and as a great lyricist wrote, so you can take that cookie and stick it up your what.
Yeah.
That is just lyrical brilliance at its best.
Yeah, there's not like people want to talk about Billy Joel, people want to talk about Bob Dylan. I'll take Fred Durst.
Nope, Fred Durst.
Any day.
You could take that cookie and stick it up your
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they got off of Cat's money, and Cat is making this is the first year of his new deal.
5-year deal.
5-year deal for $250 million. So plus, I think it's 260 actually.
We have to remember though that these max slots that people have signed in the last 3 years are going to look really good in the next couple of years. It's not. I'm not going to say they're looking good, but it's not going to be as much of a hindrance. Like $50 million is going to be what $15 million used to be.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. But I just want to do an overview really quickly of the Timberwolves, and then I want to move on to the Knicks. The Timberwolves are getting off of all of their high-value contracts. Mm-hmm. They just shipped Cat. Gobert's expiring. There's a player option for the 25-26 season for $46 million. Which
he'll pick it up. He's going to take it.
Going to take.
He will take that money.
Unless he extends off of it for a favorable deal for the Timberwolves, but I don't really.
He's going to say, "Give me le money."
Yes, and then they're going to pay Anthony Edwards because he is a potential top 5 player, and you have to.
He's going to get. He's going to get paid the day he's allowed to get paid.
Yeah. So all of the deck, they're clearing the whole deck except for Anthony Edwards, and they're going to build around him. Jaden McDaniels is a really nice piece to have. He's going to be coming up in the next, I think, 2 years. So DiVincenzo, they're going to try. Who knows if they're going to re-sign him? But they have a couple of rookies.
DiVincenzo's on a 3-year deal though.
Yeah, but he signed it last year, I think.
He's got 2 more years though.
Yeah. So they need to get off that Cat money. They needed to bring it was the best they were going to get for Cat, I think, period. I mean, again, don't forget.
Those are 2
Julius
real.
Randle is a very good player.
Those are 2 real players. Those are 2 people that you can go to battle with. There's nothing I could say bad about the Minnesota side of it.
They're both playmakers. They can both shoot a little bit. Randall can pass, so can DiVincenzo, quite frankly. And when you have
DiVincenzo can play either guard spot, absolutely.
And he can guard too. He's a good defender on the perimeter.
Yeah,
which they lacked besides Ant.
I think he's the perfect 6-man. Like I genuinely, I think if I was going to pick any player in the NBA to be my 6-man, if I was starting a team, it would be him.
So moving to the Knicks were desperate for a center. They just needed to fill that spot, and
because they're worried about Embiid.
Well, they have to. They didn't have a starting center on their roster besides Mitchell Robinson,
who's hurt.
Who is hurt for 3 months, and 3 months can be 6 months in the blink of an eye. You just don't know.
Well, Mitchell Robinson knows how much 3 months can turn into 6 months. Trust me.
Right, and Cat, and to the Knicks' credit, Cat is by far the best center who was available. I don't think there's any question about that.
If you could pick one player in the NBA that would fit with what the Knicks have, it would be Karl Anthony Towns. They need a low usage center who can shoot threes. I mean, he's not going to be the star that we want him to be there,
but he doesn't need to be, because Brunson is going to eat up the volume, right?
But is he going to be okay with that?
Yes, he's going. He did. He made way for Anthony Edwards.
The only problem I foresee is between It's not for Brunson. Brunson's going to get his. It's the Miguel Bridges touches versus his touches.
Right.
I don't know who's the number 2 in this scenario.
So that's what I think they're going to have to do, and this is obviously going to be up to Tibbs, is Bridges is probably going to lead the second unit, and Brunson and Cat are going to be playing together with the first unit, and then they're going to stagger Bridges coming back. I mean, with Anunoby too, there's a lot of mouths that have to be fed, but I think these guys, they're going to be able to craft a role for each of them. Now, the interesting thing, though, Matt, is that Tibbs used to coach Cat in Minnesota, and they did not get along. You'll remember the Jimmy Butler fiasco, where he called Rachel Nichols, said, "Come interview me after practice," and then went to practice and literally called out the entire organization and said, "Fuck you, I want to be traded."
Yeah. But I don't think I think Cat and him. Cat seems like a really good guy, so I think Thibodeau knows that, and I think Cat also understands who Thibodeau is, and just I'm playing the hard nosed coach role, and look at his numbers with Tibbs. They're fantastic. I mean, the numbers are there. He knows how to use Cat in the best way possible. His best seasons of his career were with Thibodeau. So you stick him in there. You allow him to be your center. You allow him to stretch the floor. Give him 7, 8, 9 3-pointers a game. Allow him to get 7, 8, 9 rebounds. Play. And the other good thing is on defense, you have the switchable parts on your roster. You've got Anunoby and Bridges, who are 2 of the A+++ defenders in the league. Anunoby is a huge man. He's like 250 pounds. He can bang with a lot of these centers. Maybe not Embiid and some of those guys, but Anunoby can play.
But 90% of centers in the NBA, Anunoby can probably hold up against.
Now, here's your problem with the Knicks. How are these guys all going to stay healthy with their histories?
Right, and you lost depth when you traded away the 2-for-1.
The bench is very questionable. You're relying a lot on McBride. You're relying a lot on Precious Achiuwa, like you said.
And then Jericho Sims, who is not a true backup center in the league. He might evolve into that, but currently, as it stands, he is not proven.
He means nothing to me. I mean, it's not, he's not going to move the needle. Now, Mitchell Robinson, when he comes back, will give them a really nice piece and will allow Towns to kind of drop down to more of a 4 role. And also give a really large presence on defense too, which Towns showed that he can play really well alongside a big on defense, because he is pretty agile for his size, and he's always been a relatively good defender. And the problem with him is, it's not that he's bad at any one thing. It's just with that kind of talent, when you're literally one of the top 10 shooters in the NBA and you're 7 feet tall, you probably should just be dominant. And he's just not. And he's just not.
Well, there's a couple of issues there. Number one, he's never proven to be a defensive anchor, right? He can't do that. That's not what he can do. That's why the Timberwolves brought in Gobert in the first place and moved him to the 4. I mean, that's why he really hasn't shown that dominance, and which is so weird. Like Anthony,
Richardson.
Anthony Davis was the first pick, like I think a year or 2 before Towns, and then Towns came in and was this high-flying shooting big, and then for like 2 or 3 years there, people were like, no, I'd rather have Towns than Anthony Davis.
Oh yeah, Towns was everybody's number 1 guy.
That switched quickly.
Towns until he was like 22, maybe 20, like probably his 4th year. Everyone was like, okay, this guy's not what we thought.
Another issue with Towns, Matt, is that he inexplicably goes on fouling like expeditions just randomly. Like he'll get switched on someone on the perimeter and just foul them 25 feet from the basket for no reason. And he'll just get the ball at the top of the key on offense and just bowl through people trying to get to the rim. It's just things that are just like, dude, you don't have to do all that. We have an offensive system. You'll pass the ball, you'll get it right back. Like go post up or go set up for 3, you'll get the ball back. And you don't have to foul someone on the perimeter. They'll let drive, and the help defense will come and will cinch in, and everyone will help. I mean, it's just stupid things that he doesn't need to do, that he just seems to do, especially in high leverage moments.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched a lot of Timberwolves basketball over the years, and what I notice is the fouls occur when he's either tired, and maybe in his mind it's to give him a break, or he's frustrated, which he gets often because he is a complainer. He's and New York fans are not going to like how much he complains. It's ridiculous.
Well, that's another thing. Is he going to be able to thrive in the high pressure system that is the New York media system? Like, New York basketball is a completely different level than Minnesota Timberwolves basketball.
Yes.
In terms of coverage, in terms of media, in terms of expectations. He doesn't really seem like a New York media type of person.
I don't think he is. He's very laid back. He's a casual guy. He doesn't like the limelight and all that stuff. Do I think that he's gonna thrive there? I don't know. But you have to take that chance if you're the Knicks. You have to get the 7-foot guy who shoots threes like Steph Curry on your team to go with what you have, because they've been so bad for so long. They finally put this team together. Now look what you have. You've got your core. You've got Bridges. You've got Bridges. Everyone's locked up. Yeah. OG's locked up. Towns is locked up. Brunson's locked up. DiVincenzo's locked up. Hart's locked up. Bridges is locked up.
Bridges you have for 2 years, but he's extension eligible, I think. At least, I think during this season, actually, he's extension eligible.
And he'll get it, because that's going to be their team for about 5 years. This is my take on them is it's going to be like a early 2000s Pistons sort of deal where they're going to go to the conference championship every year. I don't know if they're going to break through and win the title, but it's going to be a team you're going to see every single year deep in the playoffs. And let's be real, that's what all New York fans want.
Right. They just want a consistently winning team.
Who cares if they're going to win the championship? That's irrelevant at this point. That roster, if that roster was the roster of my basketball team, I'd just go to war with them and just be happy for a few years.
The problem is that after a year or two of winning a playoff round or two, or getting deep in the playoffs, Knicks fans are going to be like, all right, it's time to, we need to win the championship, or else it's going to be a failure of a season.
Yeah, of course. And Tibbs will be fired, and
Yes.
And that's probably the path it'll go. But the flip side is, this team can win a championship.
Right. That's what I was going to say, is that they can compete certainly they're not on the Celtics level, but they can compete with the Celtics. They're built to do that.
They're on the Celtics level without Porzingis, and Porzingis is no sure thing this year.
Right, that's true.
So it's wide open to me.
The thing we haven't talked about at all, which I think is what the Knicks are banking on, is that Leon Rose, the president of basketball operations for the Knicks, has known Karl.
No relation to Derek. No relation to Derek.
No, different. But he's known Karl since Karl was 14 years old. He knew him all throughout high school. He knew him when he was playing. He got him on the Dominican national team when John Calipari was the coach.
I remember that.
And who happened to be the coach of Kentucky, where Karl Anthony Towns went to college. So Leon Rose was also his agent, was with him when he got to Minnesota through his first All-Star appearances. They have a very deep relationship, not quite as deep as Jalen Brunson. He's known Jalen Brunson since he was literally a baby. He's best friends with his father, Rick Brunson, who's on the Knicks coaching staff. But he is very close with Karl, and I think when smart men are in power, they tend to be like, well, this worked out for me, so I'm going to do something similar in another situation, and that's going to work out for me too. What I'm trying to get at is he put a bet on Jalen Brunson when not many people were willing to give Jalen Brunson a $100 million contract. And that has worked out swimmingly for Leon Rose and the Knicks.
Yeah.
Is it the case now that when Karl Anthony Towns is probably at his lowest value in his career, trade-wise, right? He took a shot on Karl Anthony Towns. So he thinks he can do the same thing again with Cat, and he has brought him in. And he thinks that Cat can take him over the top. I am not a big Cat guy. I'm out on Cat. A couple of years, not last year in the playoffs, but the year before, when Anthony Edwards was just emerging as, a real player. Karl Anthony Towns, I saw him try and pretend to be an alpha in the playoffs and put on an alpha personality, and I was just like, oh, this guy is not comfortable in his skin. I'm out on him. I'm out. And that still holds true for me. Now, he can prove me wrong, and I can change my mind if I see new information, like we do a lot on Monday Night Conversations. But until he does, I think that the Timberwolves got the better of this deal.
I definitely respect that opinion. And if I had to choose, gun to my head, I would say yeah, just because of the sheer amount of scoring and flexibility it gives the Timberwolves. But if Towns can be efficient, It's just a huge upgrade for that team and makes them so scary offensively.
Listen, on the surface, it's exactly what they need. They need a center and they need shooting.
Who else are they going to get? Who else do you want? Who else would you get?
Right.
There's no one they could get that even touches Towns. So let's be real. They're not getting Bam, but Bam doesn't shoot threes, so who knows how well he would do on that team.
And Miami's not getting rid of Bam. Bam is going to be in Miami for the remainder of his good years.
And I take that back. Bam actually does shoot threes now. He's actually good at it.
He's pretty solid, yeah. I love Bam.
Bam's great. Anyway, the other 3 or 4 centers in the NBA that are better are either MVPs, champions, or not going anywhere. So
right.
They did what you have to do as an NBA franchise. I will not fault it, and I will give kudos to the Timberwolves for adding what could be 40 points a game to their roster.
Yeah, and again, the flexibility of Julius Randle on an expiring contract.
Correct, and if it works out, great, perfect. Re-sign Randle.
So, who do you think won the trade?
I would say Timberwolves just because of the sheer amount of volume that they get.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. Although I do think I don't see how the Knicks could have done better there.
Exactly. I think the Knicks had to do it. That's what I'm saying. I wouldn't say I would give them both A's. Like honestly, it's a wonderful trade. Every trade should be so even and make so much sense for both teams.
Yeah.
Kudos to both teams.
All right, Matt. We teased it last episode, and the time has come. Mr. McMahon, the documentary about Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Did you finish it?
Yes.
What are some initial thoughts?
It is finished. It was a fantastic documentary. The problem is when it came out and when it was filmed. Every interview was done before the shocking allegations of this past year.
Yeah.
So everything is like, oh, but did they know that? Oh, but did they know it when they're saying this? Like they put people in a really strange light. So information wise, A+. Who they got to speak on the subject, A+.
Yeah, fantastic.
It was great. Everyone did a great job. But I think that it let him off a little easy, and it also caused some people that seem like pretty good people to look really stupid on TV.
Give me an example. What do you mean?
Like Bruce Pritchard, for instance.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. Finish your point.
So Bruce Pritchard has been with the WWE since 1987. He is a lifelong wrestling persona. His brother, Dr. Tom, was part of the Body Donnas in the 90s and trained wrestlers to this day. He's been He's been a head writer / Vince's right hand / whatever the company needed him to do, basically since 1987. Take away a few years when he brought a gun to work. Anyway,
he pulled a Gilbert Arenas.
He did. He's been by McMahon's side, so yes, he acknowledged the craziness of Vince McMahon, but he also said he's a good person and brought up how he handled his wife when his wife was sick, and they cut his clip with them zooming in on him saying Vince McMahon is a good person. And for him, Vince McMahon is a good person. Vince McMahon did nothing to that man other than make his life way better than he could have ever imagined and was there for him when he needed him. So for them to make him look like an idiot like that upset me a bit because I listen to Bruce's podcast a lot, and I just think he's a really talented guy. He also played Brother Love in the 80s, if that helps anybody kind of remember who he is. Other than that, though, awesome documentary. We can go into the stuff that you liked or any questions that we have about who and what, but for the most part, it made Vince McMahon look like, at the end of the day, he's just a ruthless businessman with a crazy sex addiction, and other than that, people seem to like him a lot.
I loved the documentary. I thought it was great. I even put in the notes like best documentary content ever ? And that may be hyperbole on my end. Bruce Pritchard is known to sort of be a Vince like ass kisser, like a Vince sycophant. So like even before this documentary, I pretty much knew what I was going to get out of Bruce Pritchard. Now I agree.
They didn't need to use that though.
They didn't. No.
And they didn't need to make him look stupid like that.
Yeah.
Because he sat there and gave them, a lot of interview. It rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, I hear you. I do think they. I don't know how they could have presented the like sex allegations and accusations differently. Maybe brought it up in the more of the beginning of the documentary, because it was pretty much just like a note at the top of the documentary, and then they saved all of it for the last episode.
Because because the only time they got any information about any of the sleazy stuff that Vince did was 5-6 years after the documentary started filming.
Right.
So
they started filming before the pandemic.
Right, and that was just a basic documentary about Vince McMahon, like a pure information push.
And let's be clear. There were sex scandals previous to these latest rounds of allegations.
And Vince is open about his promiscuity. I mean, he's he talks about how sexual he is, and I mean, he's a clearly very insecure man. I mean, that's what I took from it. That he grew up dirt poor in a trailer and
abused physically and sexually
abused. You're right, and he never got over it, and he took it out on the world and thought the world owed him everything, and he got everything from the world, and at the end of the day, he sold his company for billions of dollars. His family will never have to worry for like 1,000 years.
Well, so that's an interesting point. I really did like the going into the personal life of Vince McMahon, which, as far as I know, he never spoke about before, and then learning the true family dynamic of Shane and, to a lesser extent, Linda and Stephanie. But a lot of the Shane stuff was really good in terms of why he left initially, how, stuff you could have guessed, but hearing it out of Shane's mouth, like the fact that he always wanted to be in the business and be like his dad and have his dad be proud of him. And, stuff like that I thought was really, really poignant and really hit home.
I felt really, really sad for Shane anytime he was brought up. I mean, what essentially happened was his father fell in love with Triple H. Basically arranged him to marry his daughter and become the first family of wrestling. Because he thought, this is my take. I could be looking into it because of my years of therapy. But to me, it looks like he viewed Shane as a spoiled rich kid and looked at Triple H as himself. Mm-hmm. And he wanted Triple H to be the next him. And Stephanie had his personality, his cutthroat mentality, and that was it. And Shane was just left out, literally.
And let's not forget, Linda was always the CEO, handling the business operations. Now, a lot of those decisions came from Vince and the direction came from Vince, but Linda was handling all the business details that led to the acquisition of all those wrestling territories in the 80s, and then the collaborations with the MTVs and the USA Network, et cetera, et cetera.
Linda was
really
essential.
Vaulted WWF.
Yeah, Linda was essential, but she's in the office while Vince is, touring the world, sleeping with every woman that he wanted. Whether it was, the stories are brutal. So it's hard to compartmentalize him as a person anymore, because his impact on wrestling is just so enormous. There's literally no wrestling as we know it. It would still be in back rooms and beer halls and stuff like that without him. He created this entire entity that is now, touring the world and basically unopposed to like the biggest sports entertainment company on earth.
He's by far the most important person in the history of professional wrestling.
No question. And he's also arguably the best on-screen character in the history of wrestling.
Well, yeah, I think that's true. He's certainly the best heel in the history of wrestling.
But the thing that was kind of like an overriding topic was, what's the difference between Vince McMahon and Mr. McMahon the character?
Right. Where did Mr. McMahon end and Vince McMahon begin?
And and what it turns out is Mr. McMahon was a character at first, but it was who Vince was as a person and inside. He basically he used Mr. McMahon as a crutch, saying, "Oh no, that's just my character." These are things that he thinks, he writes, he believes. He wanted people to kiss his ass. Like, he wrote for people to kiss his own ass.
But you even saw it in the interview footage when interviewed with Bob Costas and Armin Katayan. He tried to intimidate those people. Like when they asked him tough questions or asked him questions that he didn't like. He's tried to slap Armin Katayan's papers out of his hands. I mean, it's just that's not something a businessman, a professional does in an interview setting.
Right, but he said, but if you'll ask Vince, he would say, no, that was just Mr. McMahon coming out. That was just me doing my character on TV. But it's not. He's sitting there doing a real interview with a real deal journalist, and he got upset because the journalist was just like in shock by him for being so ridiculous.
Right. It wasn't on a WWE sanctioned program. It was on different turf, and it was him, letting his hubris out and being a complete asshole.
And that's what he is, but you'll never hear from him again. I mean, that's the craziest part of this whole thing. You'll never see him on TV other than maybe some sort of interview. I'm guessing.
I don't know if he's going to come back unless it's in defense of the accusations. He's not coming back. Overall, though, I loved the content. I thought it was fantastic.
Oh yeah,
I couldn't stop watching.
Enjoyed the hell out of it.
Yeah. So, coming off of us loving the Mr. McMahon documentary, I wanted to put a list together, Matt, of the best heels in sports today, right? So if you don't know what a heel is, first of all, go learn. But a heel is like a bad guy, right? It's Ric Flair, it's Mr. McMahon, it's Stone Cold when he first began, and it's Hogan when he turned in WCW when he was the third man.
The basic definition of it is essentially the heel is there to get heat, which essentially is the heel is there to get the audience to hate you enough to want to pay money for you to lose.
Yes. So the heel is the character who gets booed in wrestling, and
yes.
the babyface is the character who gets cheered.
Yes.
So who are the top 5 heels in sports today? I think the first one is the most obvious. It's Draymond Green. Yeah,
he is. If he doesn't sign a WWE contract the day he retires, I'd be shocked. I mean, right. the only reason he wouldn't is financials, not needing it, but.
Oh, he could also. He's going to go into broadcasting, so he's not. I mean, I assume he wouldn't, but he could easily step into the ring and be a heel immediately. But you know what? The crowd would love him so much that he could turn face at some point as well.
Draymond a few years ago, I loved. He's unwatchable now.
Was that after he put Rudy Gobert in a chokehold?
That was basically the tipping point for my affection for Draymond. I'm like, okay, he doesn't even give a shit about trying to play basketball anymore. He just wants to rile people up, rile up the crowds, get suspended, be on TV. Like it's annoying now, and his team sucks. And you can't go around acting like a bully when you suck. It's weird.
So he's the number 1 heel. My second heel is not an athlete, but he's a member of sports media, and that's Skip Bayless. I mean, I think Bayless, I don't know a person who is like, Jesus Christ, what is Skip talking about whenever he says something? It's, oh my God, did he really just say that? And not necessarily in a good way either. He's outrageous to be outrageous and still doesn't think LeBron James is good. He's been calling him Prince James for 25 years.
He says things just to get clicks. He always has. Him and Stephen A. Smith originated this entire take process where you're just saying outlandish stuff no matter if you mean it or not. You just need a stance and you need to scream about it. That's who Skip Bayless is. He's a guy
At least Stephen A. Smith, I think he believes a lot of what he says. Skip, I know for a fact, well, I shouldn't say no for a fact. I have a high assumption that he just says shit to say shit, to be outlandish, to get views and clicks, and to rile people up.
Definitely. And because of his background in the Dallas Dynasty, that's kind of where he got started. He was kind of the lead reporter for the Dallas Morning News and wrote multiple books on the Dallas Cowboys. He made friends with
Jerry Jones. He made friends with Jerry Jones and got inside access.
So he was also a failed high school athlete.
Yeah.
And he just has this bitter streak in him about athletes that is, it's just, I don't watch the guy. I'm glad he left ESPN because I don't watch Fox Sports because it's just a different channel.
It's so funny. It's such a heel beginning where he was like this prodigy in middle school and early high school, and then just flattened out by the time he was a junior, and did not even go to college for it because he just couldn't. But anyway, great heel origin story. Skip Bayless, sucks. The next heel, and this is more along the lines of like a Stone Cold or a Rock, because I think you can really love him, but he is still a heel, and that's Jimmy Butler.
Yes, Jimmy Butler wants to be a heel, but he's actually plays too hard and is too likable.
He gets too over. He's too over.
Yeah. He's too good at what he does and too badass. Like when you try really hard, it's hard to hate you. So like and it's not like he's there like trying to fight other people or being like a distraction or a bad teammate other than when he was in Minnesota.
Well, yeah, that's arguable.
That's arguable. But he seems like he just cares about his profession more than most people and doesn't respond to anything less.
Yeah, and if you don't live up to his standard of winning basketball or excellence or work ethic, then he will rip you apart. Now, he did get into a fight with Eric Spoelstra on the bench a couple of times, and Spoelstra, this is probably the most respected person in basketball, probably besides Pop. So, I mean, if you're getting into a fight with Spoelstra, that says something. But that's why I said he's along the lines of like a Rock in the early Rock stages when he was a heel.
It's tough for Butler because he was never supposed to be any of this.
Yeah.
So he's reached such heights where he's almost the best player, but never what really was and never really is going to be. And he's kind of maxed out. He went to the finals. I mean, where do you go from here? That team probably doesn't get back to the finals. It's just it's just other teams have just gotten so much better since then.
Now, the next heel is more up your alley, Matt. It is the 2017 Astros, and I specifically put down Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman.
Altuve's the heel out of the two of them. Altuve's the biggest heel in baseball. Altuve's the one who, if you know the video of him running to home, telling everyone not to touch his jersey because of his electronic device inside.
Because he would have been electrocuted.
he's the scummiest, and he smiles about it, and he laughs about it. And you know what? He should, because if you get away with it, you win World Series and nothing happens to you, and all you do is get contract extensions, I'd probably be smiling too.
Very brief overview. The Astros cheated in the 2017 World Series when they had literally players wearing electronic devices to get tipping off pitches from the outfield. Am I describing that accurately, Matt?
Exactly. They were filming the catcher, relaying the signals to the batter either via trash can or electronic device.
Right.
And
Altuve was the main beneficiary from that cheating scandal.
Yes, but he was also kind of the poster child for it.
Yeah. So he's definitely a heel. I mean, he's a great baseball player, and if he was on my team, I'd root for him. But everyone else in the country hates him.
Yeah, no one gets booed quite like him in the majors these days.
Yeah. And then my last heel, and we've talked about this fella quite a bit, Deshaun Watson.
Ooh. So it's hard to even call him a heel because when you're talking about heels, I brought up the term heat. Yes. So you want to generate heat. Heat is a positive thing, getting the crowd to boo you. What Deshaun Watson has is what's called go-away heat, which means they don't even want to come see you anymore. They don't. Right. They want you to go away. They're not going to spend their money until you get out of here. So he's beyond a heel. He's a heel that would be fired from any other promotion other than the NFL.
Right, because what he's done is so despicable that you can't even present it as like a character worthy of booing because you're just like, get this piece of shit off of my screen. So were you going to ask me if I had any heels? Do you have any? I don't know. You just kind of did your own thing. So I thought of while we were doing this, I'm just looking at you, waiting for you to say his name, and you just never did. There's only one heel in sports, and there always has been only one heel in sports that has ever really been a heel. And he passed away yesterday, and his name's Pete Rose. He is the king of all heels. He was the guy that was going to run you over at catcher, spit on your shoes. He was going to trip you. He was going to lie to you. He was going to steal from you. He was going to take your children away from you. That's what kind of human being Pete Rose was. Rest in peace, Pete Rose, but that dude was as bad of a seed as you're ever going to find playing professional sports, and he milked it for every dollar it was worth. And we had this conversation. and then bet on it outside of baseball and got suspended forever, exiled from the sport.
Yeah, I mean, the best was that he denied all those years that he didn't gamble on baseball, and then just moves to Vegas. It's just like he's like, I got to be right there, and spends literally the last 30 years of his life in casinos every day.
Yeah. That's a good point. Rest in peace, though, Pete Rose.
But he is the Pete Rose Heel Award should be given out each year to the best heel in sports. This year would be Draymond, and also Draymond should get a Lifetime Achievement Pete Rose Heel Award.
That's a fair point. Also, honorable mention for heel in sports, Roger Goodell.
Yes, he's actually great because he's hateable and he doesn't understand why.
Right, he doesn't get why people hate him.
He doesn't understand why his face is punchable. He doesn't get it.
Yeah. So those are our professional sports heels. I guess biggest heels in sports today, as we'll call it.
Sport heels.
Sport heels. Sportles. Sport heel.
Any relation to the Tar Heels?
I don't think so.
What is a Tar Heel? Still have no idea.
It's a ram.
It's a ram?
Yes.
Called a Tar Heel?
Yes.
Where do Tar Heel Rams exist?
The mountains of North Carolina.
Tar Heel Ram.
That's why the UNC's mascot is a ram.
Good point. I just thought it was the Oakland A's mascot's an elephant. I don't understand why that is.
That came from the Republicans versus the Democrats. I don't know why. I just made it up.
Well, right. I'm just saying. That's my point, that it doesn't always matter. The Yankees don't even have a mascot, nor do the Red Sox.
The Red Sox mascot is Sox.
Socks. He just wears one big red condom.
There's a giant red sock that is their mascot.
With eye holes cut out.
With the remaining time we have left, which is not much time, Matt.
No, we're pretty much good.
I do want to play Was the World Wrong based on week 4 of the NFL. We haven't talked at all about the NFL. Big week. I have all Super Bowl contender Was the World Wrong. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Number 1, was the world wrong that the Ravens were not Super Bowl contenders?
Of course the world was wrong. But were they, though? Yes, the Ravens won 35-10. Yes, the Ravens looked like the best team in football, and they can run. They still have a quarterback that has never shown up in a big game. So I'm saying that they were still correct. I do not believe the Ravens are capable of winning a Super Bowl this year until I see Lamar passing like a normal human being.
Now, I am taking the opposite approach to you. I say as long as the Ravens have a healthy Lamar, they are Super Bowl contenders. Some of the throws he made on Sunday night were incredible. That he did a looping throw to Zay Flowers on the sideline, which Zay for some reason lost in the lights and didn't catch. He fitted into a 4-foot window with a defender behind and in front of him. It was incredible.
I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm saying he doesn't do it.
I'm just giving you an example of him doing it.
It's not considered. He didn't even throw for 200 yards again.
He doesn't need to throw for 200 yards.
He's going to need to in January when you're playing offenses that have been working together for 3 months and understand what to do.
Not necessarily. I don't
because it's gone well over the last 6 years. It's gone well.
When you have Derrick Henry and the threat of Lamar running as well, I think the recipe is exactly what they did to Buffalo on Sunday. It's run the fucking ball down their throat, get a lead, and protect the lead.
We don't do that with Philadelphia.
We don't do what with Philadelphia?
We can't play that offensive game plan with a team like the Eagles.
Why not?
Because their defensive tackles are too good.
Oh yeah, they really showed up the other day against the Bucs. They got crushed by 25 points.
Well, that was the offense's fault.
Yeah, but the defense is who led up the 33 points.
Jalen Carter's the best player in the NFL.
I disagree. Which brings me to my next point. The Eagles were Super Bowl contenders.
Wait a minute.
Was the world wrong about the Eagles?
You're underestimating Jalen Carter.
Why? Because I said he's not the best player in the NFL?
You're dismissing it too quickly.
You're the one who always argues about Patrick Mahomes, and now you're going to come here and tell me that Jalen Carter is the best player in the NFL?
I'll qualify it. He's the best defensive lineman right now in the NFL.
The best defensive lineman. Yeah, I'm probably still going to go with
Who?
TJ Watt.
He's an outside linebacker.
He's a down lineman.
No, he's not.
He's an end. He's an edge rusher, man.
He's an edge.
Are edge rushers not defensive linemen? Are you going to say strictly interior defensive linemen?
Do you look at recruiting rankings ever?
No.
Well, in recruiting rankings, you've got D linemen, and then you have edge, two separate categories. They're two different positions. So defensive line are larger people who are going to, your 4-3 end. Your 260-pound end, your 265-pound end, your 300-pound defensive tackles, stuff like that. That's going to be more defensive line. Edge now is its own category, really only speaks for your lighter players, your quicker players off the edge, like your TJ Watts.
How much does TJ Watt weigh?
Probably like 245.
I bet you he's over 260.
You think TJ Watt's over 260?
Yes.
I mean, you only think that because you want to think that.
Let's see how much he weighs.
I'm looking it up. You shut your mouth.
You shut your mouth.
If I'm wrong, I'm not going to tell you, though. So that's all that matters.
If I'm wrong, I'm not going to tell you.
He's a slim, sensual 250.
Yeah, I saw that too.
But but for instance, Micah Parsons 245. Like that's
Miles. What about Myles Garrett?
Myles Garrett is a defensive lineman. He's not an edge.
Okay. Well, and I'll take Myles Garrett over Jalen Carter.
Me too. I'll take Myles Garrett over anybody.
Boom! That's how you win an argument.
Okay. Best defensive tackle in football, Jalen Carter.
The Eagles were Super Bowl contenders. Was the world wrong?
Yes. That team has no chance. Hurts is broken. The relationship with the coach is broken. I see no path forward for the Eagles. Saquon has been fantastic, but it has not mattered.
No, it has not translated, which is
I don't know.
Weird.
I don't know really what the injury situation is with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. They've been lingering. They're out. There's no one to throw to. He cannot throw. He cannot throw. He doesn't throw or look to anybody else but Dallas Goedert when they're out. It's the offense is boring, predictable. Heads are going to roll in Philly. I'm really surprised he was not fired on Monday.
Well, they're on a bye, so I agree. I'm surprised. I don't know. They just have no succession plan. I guess that's why they haven't fired him.
They don't.
But you've been calling this Sirianni and Jalen Hurts rift all season. It's bad, man. It doesn't look good. They don't even look at each other. They should have gone into Tampa wanting to kill them because they got knocked out in the playoffs by them last year.
You would think
they got crushed.
It's a disaster. It's going to be one of those disaster seasons for the Eagles. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think they could. I mean, look, they can come back real strong, real quick with the right coaching change. But Hurts is signed long term with a lot of guaranteed money. Mm-hmm. I don't know how good that contract's going to be looking at the end of this year.
Listen, you still have not had your full accompaniment of weapons. Like A.J. Brown's been out. Devontae Smith has now been out. Barkley has been amazing. But if you have no one to throw to, who are you throwing to?
It's showing me how limited he is. Yes, you can be good when you throw to Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. If you're an NFL-type quarterback. But when the chips are out, I mean, it's not.
When you don't have Pro Bowl receivers to throw to, you have to show up and be a really good quarterback.
And he did not, and he has not. And
you just made my Lamar Jackson argument for me. Thank you.
I'm not saying Lamar's not great. I'm saying he does not show up in big games, and that's a verifiable fact.
2 for 2 on arguments. Next, was the world wrong? The Chiefs are Super Bowl contenders. Was the world wrong about that?
No, they have Patrick Mahomes.
Hear me out. They lost Rashee Rice. They don't have Marquise Brown. They lost Isaac Pacheco. They lost Pacheco. They Travis Kelce.
Pacheco will be back.
Looks like he's 65.
8 catches for 87 yards.
They can't throw down the field. They have scored less points every week this season. 27, 26, 19, and 17 in their 4 games. Are they Super Bowl contenders, Matt?
Yes.
And that is great podcasting content.
I've just been noticing this trend over the last few weeks where you're trying to put takes out that are diminishing who and what Patrick Mahomes is.
What take did I put out? I'm asking. I'm just asking questions. I'm just asking.
But I'm giving you a fact. If Patrick Mahomes is healthy, the Chiefs are a Super Bowl contender. Period. End of story.
I agree.
There's nothing else to talk about. Bringing them up as not a Super Bowl contender is blasphemous.
Who brought him up as not a Super Bowl contender? I asked, was the world wrong? So you're saying the world was right by considering them Super Bowl contenders.
But you're the world in this scenario because you wrote the question.
Yes, but you have to question things in order to come to conclusions.
I would question it if it wasn't involving Patrick Mahomes. Like, it's like in the mid-'90s saying, you know what, Scottie Pippen's banged up. Don't think the Bulls got a shot this year.
Well, I would make Michael Jordan the Patrick Mahomes comparison.
But I'm saying even when Pippen was out, they still had Michael Jordan. If Michael Jordan's on the team, you're going to be a championship contender.
Yeah.
So, yes, I think that people are wrong, yes.
I agree. The world was not wrong by declaring the Chiefs Super Bowl contenders. That's all. We're playing the game here. Another one. The Commies are not Super Bowl contenders. Not even NFC East contenders. Was the world wrong?
No, they were right.
They're not Super Bowl or NFC East. They're not contenders for the NFC East.
No, I don't believe it.
I disagree.
I don't. NFC East maybe, but Super Bowl absolutely not. Absolutely.
Well, there I agree. They're not Super Bowl contenders.
Not even close because their defense is horrid, and I'm telling you, it's going to show itself to be that way as the weeks pass. Jalen Daniels is playing out of his mind. I'm completely bought in that he's amazing. I still think he's slender. I still think he's going to get knocked out. I still think there's going to be problems with how thin he is. But while he's healthy, that team's looking like the best team in the division probably. I mean, because
I still think the NFC East is like a horrible division, like a top 3 bottom division in football.
It is, but can that Washington defense hold up, and can the Washington roster withstand any injuries because they've been really healthy so far? So like you subtract, if McLaurin goes down, there's nothing else. I mean, you got to really be worried. So Super Bowl, no. Division, I will say the world was wrong.
Thank you for coming around to the world's perspective. Last one. The Bills were Super Bowl contenders.
Yes, they are.
Was the world wrong?
No, of course they're still Super Bowl contenders. Why would the world ever think that a team with Josh Allen couldn't win the Super Bowl? He's too good. He had a bad game in Baltimore. There's been a lot of great quarterbacks that have sang that sad song. And to think that team who looked like the best team in the NFL the first 3 weeks, like, let's not forget that.
Yep.
There's no reason to think that team cannot succeed. Will they? I don't know. There are some weaknesses, but they found gold in that corner. Bernard, who I'm obsessed with him. I watched him play a lot in the game last week. And Khalil Shakir, he's a guy.
He's legit.
He's
a dude.
I was wondering, I wondered a lot about, was it worth getting rid of Diggs? Best decision that team's ever made. Shakir's already better than he is now, and they cleared all that money. Great business decision.
I agree with you. The world was not wrong. Josh Allen will elevate the team to, I think, at least playoff status. And then when you get into a one-game situation, Josh Allen can carry a team for anything.
I'd want him on my team. Second best quarterback in the NFL. No question about it.
Not over Lamar for me.
Really?
I'm Lowell.
I love Lamar. It's just Josh Allen, he's just does some special things that
Where's your loyalty, Matt? Where's your loyalty?
Well, since I've entered the media, I try to be impartial with my opinions. It's a bit of professionalism that I try to bring to the pod that you clearly don't.
It's interesting. I don't see your objective opinions on many things.
Really?
Yeah. You don't show your objectivity very often.
I am so objective. You don't know shit. Nah, dude, you don't know shit about objectivity.
Very, very professional. You're like a regular Mr. McMahon in an interview with Armin Catan.
Ooh. Are you saying I remind you of Vince McMahon?
Yes.
Okay. In what way?
Because I want to start a union, and you shot it down.
Well, starting a union on my watch.
But Vince, we have to start a union for all of the wrestlers in the back. The guys in the back deserve it, Vince.
I'm going to stand with Vince, brother. Hey, Vince. I said, hey, Vince.
I went to Hogan and I said, Hulk, you got to have us get a union. We want the boys in the back to have health care. And you know what Hulk did? He ran right to Vince and opened his yap.
And then Hulk said, you know what, brother? I went right to Vince. What's going to mess with my money?
Oh, that's fucking awesome. All right. We have gone over. Matt has got to get to bed.
It's still light out.
Just kidding. Yeah, no, it's before 6. Thank you for joining us. Go to our YouTube page. Subscribe. Like all the videos. Just watch them down. Like and subscribe the podcast. Thank you for joining me today, Matt. It was a pleasure as always.
God bless America and God bless Brazil.
And take care of yourself.
And Brazil.
And each other.
And Brazil.
Why Brazil?
I don't know. I'm pro Brazil today.
All right, I'm stopping it.
All right.